Yo, what is up, my friends? Welcome to another episode of Dostcast. My name is Vinamre. If you are new to our YouTube channel, please subscribe because we release new episodes every Tuesday and Friday at 12 p.m. Indian Standard Time. If you're listening to this podcast on an audio platform, make sure you give us 5 stars because we're the best in Bharat. In this podcast episode, which was originally a Twitter Spaces, I talked to Varun Mayya about the future of AI. Varun has been roughly talking about AI for the last year or so. Varun is one of the smartest guys to talk about AI startups and what it feels like to live in the future. We talked about ChatGPT, the implications of AI, and much more in this Twitter Spaces that is now being released as an official podcast on Dostcast. The episode with Varun Mayya begins in 3, 2, 1. Yeah, bro. First of all, super congratulations to you for the success of Aevy TV. I'm so glad that experiment is paying off. I think what you and your team are doing in that infotainment YouTube space is awesome. So congratulations for that, first of all.
Thank you.
And secondly, we're going to discuss AI today because I know that you've been bullish about AI for pretty much 2 years now since the start of the pandemic, and ever since ChatGPT came out, I think even before that, you came out with something called God in a Box at the same time. And I know you spoke about AI a lot. The last time we spoke on my podcast, you talked about the one skill that people should have, and for that you said it should be coding.
Yeah.
What do you think it is now?
Yeah. So let me tell you when AI first blew my mind. Right. I don't know if I told you this on the last podcast, but I've been playing a game called Dota for a very long time, almost 10 years now. Right. I played whenever.
You did talk about your love for Dota.
Yeah. So I played it for a very long time, and imagine my surprise where every year Dota has this tournament called the International. Okay. So this one year they had the international tournament, and they said, well, in one of the rounds, they had AI bots playing against humans. So 5 independent AI bots playing against humans. It was by a company called OpenAI. Nobody had ever heard about OpenAI back then. I was like, let's watch this game. And in that game, the AI invented a completely new technique to play, right? They were coordinating very well. So usually, right, when you have a bot in a game, the bot's just mechanically better than you, right? The bot's just shooting faster, it's clicking faster when it sees you, it's going straight for the head. It's simple. But here they were coordinating better, right? It wasn't just mechanical skill that they were beating the human beings on, they were beating them on coordination. And I was like, wow, that's like Dota is not like chess, it's far more complex. There's so many variables involved in it, right? So I was like, hey, if that can happen, then well, how long till it comes for simpler tasks like the ones we do on a daily basis, right? Most of India, like Kunal Shah keeps saying this, most of India runs on inefficiency, right? There are people who are not good at what they do, and because the owner of the business doesn't want to use software or there's no alternative, he's just like, well, I might as well pay this person 10,000 rupees to go get this done. But with AI coming, now you have something that'll make that possible for like 100 rupees or 200 rupees, right? So my fear is that. But I also think, it's not going to be a world where AI does everything, at least not for a period of time until we get to the philosophical questions, I assume, that are coming on this podcast. But I think it is more about, there's going to be, in the next 5 years, there's going to be a bunch of people who I call superhumans, right? Who will have everything delivered by these AI tools, right? For example, very simple. You and I both know that AI you can sharpen images now with AI, right? We already know that
Correct.
Cameras can see farther than the human eye, right? If you have the right lens, you can see farther than the human eye. With AI, you can post-process audio. So imagine I had like these earbuds, and I remember somebody 5 or 6 years ago had demoed these earbuds to me at CES, where it would filter conversations that were happening in the room around me. And, I could tune in on any one of those conversations. In fact, if I wanted to, I could shut them all off. Like that's traditional noise cancellation, right? So imagine you'd be wearing earpieces and you'll be able to tune into anybody around you, even if they're very, very far away. Because the AI can post-process that content and give it to you. Like it just needs enough signal to be able to pick up on some information, right? Same with your eyes. You wear these glasses, they have a camera on them. You can see much farther than the average human, right? A coder who, would earlier have to spend a lot of time manually coding now has this co-pilot with him who's writing code with him, right? Or her. And they are doing 10 times, they have 10 times the productivity of the average person. So my worry is we are going to enter that era. So the power law that we have right now, where some people are really rich and some people have a lot more resources than the other people, that is going to be even more skewed. And it's going to be the world of the person who need not necessarily need to know how to, do things very much in depth, but needs to be someone who can string things together, right? It's more about you need to have some practical experience with something and then be able to string these tools together, and suddenly you're far better than hundreds of humans, competing against you. And I think this leverage, Vinamre, you are already familiar with, like your podcast. Like, think about this, right? If I take 10,000 interns, okay, and tell them, okay, I'm paying you all 10,000 rupees this month. I have 10,000 of you. Go pull me more views than Vinamre's podcast. Would that be possible? No, right? Because you've built some leverage, and that leverage is hard for somebody else to beat by just throwing bodies at it. And I feel like that's the generation we're entering with AI, where it depends on the tool and the leverage you have. And that's the scary part. So yeah, code is still very important, because now you can become a super coder. You can do 10 times more than what the other person does. And so is things like distribution. Like, you remember with Aevy, we started this video editing cohort.
I just wanna answer you, because there's a lot of things that you said that were of value, bro. So I actually have this tweet in front of me from this guy called Marketing Max. Mm-hmm. And he said, they said it couldn't be done, but I just replaced my entire 5% marketing team with the amazing new ChatGPT technology. Yeah. He replaced his ad copywriter, and the prompt was, can you write 5 funny Facebook ad taglines for my client which sells lingerie? The GPT did it. Same with an advisor, same with the project manager, same with the hiring manager, same with myself. You said that if you're competent enough and you're somewhat of a generalist and you understand the roles in a team, effectively, you don't need to have as many inefficient employees, right? Is that somewhat accurate? Are we going to see more of solopreneurs?
Yeah, I think solopreneurs is the wrong word. I think you'll see like teams of like 3-4 people. Like, I'll give you an example, okay? When I ran Avalon as a services company, and this was like 5-6 years ago or something like that, we had like 50 employees, and many of those were engineers, many of those were very expensive. Today, we run scenes on 11, right? And we make far more money, right? That's the weird part. So I feel like software has already created this leverage, and same with you, right? With content, you've already created this leverage. You don't need to be a media company. You don't need to have like 100 writers, like, Times of India, right? You don't need to have people who are editing that column. You don't need to do a lot of things. So we've already been seeing the shrinking company phenomenon, and I feel we're going to see more of that. Except now the shrink numbers are so small that you'll see 3-man teams, 4-man teams, where the core decision making is or the core capital allocation is still done by the people. Because at the end of the day, when you're running a company, and what you do, Vinamre, sure, you create content, but you're also allocating capital. You're making some money from the company. You're like, okay, where do I put this? Do I grow? Do I make merchandise? Do I do this? Do I do that? And that's decision making. That is hard to outsource to an AI, because there's so many environmental variables involved that an AI simply can't give you a specific answer. AI has gotten great at the generics, can do a little bit of specifics, but the minute you give it a very specific environment, which it hasn't seen before, or even if it has seen something similar, it might not apply to. It's sort of like advice, right? Advice, like I said this, right? There's always a tagline of "it depends." Whenever you ask somebody for advice, there's always this "it depends." So you could tell somebody, well, running's great for you, and for most of the population, running's great. But for a person who just had a heart attack, running is probably not a good idea. Or a person who has like heart blockage, running is not a great idea, right? So there's always these situations. And I think a lot of the decisions people make as entrepreneurs, and you make as an entrepreneur and a content creator, are all these situations where you can't outsource it to an AI yet, right? So it requires somebody to have lived life in your shoes for a number of years, which an AI can't do. So I feel like that's safe, which also means there's going to be lots of inequality, right? If somebody already has the money, now they're able to produce 10 businesses instead of one. And you're sort of seeing it with me, right? People don't know this, but God in a Box is like printing cash right now, right? People don't know this, and we don't even talk about it. And it took us 2 days to build, and we've just left it there.
चलो आज मैं आपको अपने बारे में एक फन फैक्ट बताता हूँ. मैं कॉलेज के टाइम से ऑडियो बुक सुन रहा हूँ. इनफैक्ट 2017 के अंदर जब मैं अमेरिका पहुँचा, बॉस्टन यूनिवर्सिटी के अंदर एक स्टूडेंट बना, तो मेरी इंग्लिश पे कमांड स्ट्रांग थी, बट मेरे को कन्वर्सेशनली फास्ट बोलना नहीं आता था। और मैंने रियलाइज़ करा कि मेरे आसपास के सारे क्लासमेट्स, किसी ने माउंट किलिमंजारो चढ़ा है, कोई एपी स्कॉलर है, कोई और बहुत बड़ा विद्वान है। मेरे को लगता था एज एन इम्पोस्टर मैं पता नहीं कैसे पहुंच गया हूँ इतने बड़े कॉलेज के अंदर। तो मुझे कॉन्स्टेंटली ना सेल्फ इंप्रूवमेंट वाला जो कीड़ा था वो चलना शुरू हो गया था। मतलब कि मेरे को अपनी करंट सिचुएशन को बहुत ज़्यादा इंप्रूव करना था। इसीलिए मैं नॉन स्टॉप, कोई तो मैंने मॉर्निंग रूटीन नहीं छोड़ा होगा, कोई मेडिटेशन नहीं छोड़ी होगी, कोई ग्रेटिट्यूड जर्नल नहीं छोड़ी होगी। सुबह उठते ही क्लासिकल म्यूजिक फोकस के लिए, ठीक है, कोल्ड शावर लेके अपना कैफीन पी के ट्रेन में कॉलेज जा रहा हूँ, पूरे टाइम कोई ना कोई सेल्फ इंप्रूवमेंट की ऑडियो बुक चल रही है, वापस आते हुए पॉडकास्ट चल रहे हैं, और रात को सोने से पहले एफर्मेशन टाइप की ऑडियो बुक चल रही है। मतलब मैं इतना ऑब्सेस था इंप्रूव करने के लिए कि मैं नॉन स्टॉप ये करता था। इनफैक्ट आज भी मेरा रिकॉर्ड है, मैं 2.5x की स्पीड पे कोई ऑडियो बुक सुन सकता हूँ और उसको समझ सकता हूँ एग्जैक्टली। कभी मेरे से मिलोगे ना, मैं शर्त लगा लेना, देखना कौन जीतता है, कौन, तुम खुद 1.75 पे गिव अप कर दोगे, 2 पे, मैं 2.5 तक सुन सकता हूँ, 3 भी कोशिश करूँ तो लेके जा सकता हूँ। एनीवे, मैं इतना ऑब्सेस था, मैं ये 24 घंटे करता था। एंड हाँ, आज थोड़ा बचकाना लगता है कि यार कितना सेल्फ इंप्रूवमेंट कंटेंट कंज्यूम करता था, लेकिन ऑनेस्टली बताऊं, अगर मैंने उन पिवटल ईयर्स के अंदर इतना सेल्फ हेल्प कंटेंट ऑडियो बुक्स के थ्रू, पॉडकास्ट के थ्रू कंज्यूम ना करा होता ना, तो हो सकता है मेरी जो थोड़ी बहुत भी स्किल है ना एज अ होस्ट, या मेरा जो एक क्या बोलूँगा, एक लेवल ऑफ रैशनैलिटी या इंटेलेक्ट है, कुछ भी है जो, वो इतना एनहांस ना होता। ठीक है, इसी को मद्देनजर रखते हुए मैं आपको अपनी 3 फेवरेट ऑडियो बुक के रिकमेंडेशन दे रहा हूँ, वो वाली ऑडियो बुक्स जिन्होंने मेरे को मेरे पिवटल ईयर्स के अंदर बहुत हेल्प करी। ठीक है, नंबर 1 गोज विदाउट सेइंग, किंग ऑफ पॉडकास्ट एंड ऑडियो बुक्स एंड सेल्फ हेल्प कंटेंट, आई एम नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट जो रोगन, मैं बात कर रहा हूँ टिम फेरिस की 4 आवर वर्क वीक। ये पहली ऐसी किताब है जिसके अंदर ना वो जो टेम्पलेट जिसको आज हम बहुत नॉर्मल मानते हैं ना, कि ब्रेक द 9 to 5, वर्क लेस एंड ट्रैवल द वर्ल्ड वाला जो टेम्पलेट है ना, ये बंदा लेके आया था। द फैक्ट दैट ही नरेट्स इट हिमसेल्फ, और टिम फेरिस इतना काम लगता है ना जब वो उसको नरेट करता है, ऐसा लगता है यार कि मेरे लिए भी पॉसिबल है, कई सारे पैसे कमाना पॉसिबल है, और एकदम ऑप्टिमाइज लाइफस्टाइल वाली जिंदगी जीना भी पॉसिबल है। ठीक है, मुझे ये भी लगता है कि आज भी अगर कोई पैसेजेस हैं बैचिंग, ऑटोमेशन, डेलीगेशन के अंदर, हायरिंग ए वर्चुअल असिस्टेंट, बिल्डिंग ई प्रोडक्ट्स, तो उस किताब से बेटर कोई भी नहीं। अभी तक ऐसी कोई किताब नहीं आई है जिसके अंदर इतनी सिंप्लिसिटी से ये फंडामेंटल मॉडर्न डे 4 आवर वर्क वीक वाले जो तुम चीज़ें इंप्लीमेंट कर सकते हो, ये वाले पैसेजेस और कहीं नहीं है। ठीक है, नंबर 2 जो किताब है जो मैं रेकमेंड करना चाहता, नंबर 2 ऑडियो बुक जो मैं रेकमेंड करना चाहता हूँ, वो है द वॉर ऑफ आर्ट बाय स्टीवन प्रेसफील्ड। अभी रिसेंटली स्टीवन प्रेसफील्ड जो रोगन पे भी आया था, एंड मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि जितने भी लोग घर बैठ के प्रोक्रास्टिनेट कर रहे हैं, जिनको कोई ना कोई आर्टिस्टिक वेंचर शुरू करना है, कोई बिजनेस शुरू करना है, जो पूरे दिन बैठ के सिर्फ और सिर्फ कंज्यूम करते हैं और फिर मैसेज लिखते हैं यार कि हम शुरू नहीं कर पा रहे हैं, उनके लिए एक फुल प्रूफ इलाज है। सबसे बड़ी बात तो बेसिकली ये है कि एक हम लोगों ने इनके लिए ये फुल प्रूफ इलाज है, बिकॉज इसके अंदर स्टीवन प्रेसफील्ड 2 बातें कहता है। एक तो वो आइडेंटिफाई करता है कि जो आपकी प्रोक्रेस्टिनेशन है, जो आपका वेट करना है, जो आपकी एक्सक्यूजेस हैं, उसको वो रेजिस्टेंस विद अ कैपिटल आर डिफाइन करता है। ये आपकी रेजिस्टेंस है, इसे आपको ओवरकम करना है, और ओवरकम करके जिसको चेज करना है उसका नाम है म्यूज। जैसे एंशिएंट ग्रीस के अंदर एक खूबसूरत औरत जो डिवाइन इंस्पिरेशन देती है, उसको स्टाइलाइज कर रखा है एज अ म्यूज। तो ये किताब अगर आप सुन लोगे ना, मैं गारंटी बोल रहा हूँ, हैंड्स डाउन, आप ना you're going to be set on fire to work on the project that you've been delaying for a long time. ठीक है, नंबर 3 जो मेरी रिकमेंडेशन है, it's a little weird, it's not for everyone, but मेरे हिसाब से it's one of those memoirs that's going to change the way you think about your psyche, your imagination, and your unconscious. I'm talking about Memories, Dreams, and Reflections by Carl Jung. कार्ल यूंग के अंदर मेरे को फैसिनेशन है आर्केटाइप्स, मैस्कुलिन आर्केटाइप्स, फेमिनिन आर्केटाइप्स, शैडो साइड, इन सब चीज़ों में मेरा रुझान शुरुआत से है। इस पर्टिकुलर किताब के अंदर इंटरेस्टिंग क्या है, ये कार्ल यूंग का अपना मेमोयर है एज ही बिकम्स साइकोथेरेपिस्ट। यहाँ पे इवेंट्स तो हैं बट एक्सटर्नल लाइफ इवेंट्स का जिक्र नहीं है। बाहर किसी का बच्चा हो रहा है या घर मूव कर रहा है, दैट इज़ नॉट इंपॉर्टेंट, जो और बायोग्राफीज में इंपॉर्टेंट होता है, मेमोइर्स में इंपॉर्टेंट होता है। यहाँ पे हम इनर लाइफ इवेंट्स की बात कर रहे हैं, हमारी साइकी कैसे मैच्योर कर रही है, हमारी साइकी में कौन से हॉरर्स हैं, व्हाट काइंड ऑफ ड्रीम्स इज कार्ल यूंग गेटिंग। किसी दिन शेर आ रहा है, किसी दिन उसका पापा आ रहा है, किसी दिन कोई टूम्ब आ रहा है, इस तरह की क्रेजी वाली चीज़ है ना। तो मैं ये पर्टिकुलरली उन लोगों को रेकमेंड करता हूँ जिनको लगता है कि पार्ट्स ऑफ दर साइकी आर अंडर डेवलप्ड। इट्स अ वे टू टैप इन टू अ वर्ल्ड दैट इजंट मटीरियलिस्टिक, दैट इजंट सेल्फ हेल्पी, इट्स जस्ट अ पार्ट ऑफ द ह्यूमन एक्सपीरियंस जो हम अक्सर मिस कर देते हैं। ठीक है, तो ये थी मेरी 3 रिकमेंडेशंस हैं, टिम फेरिस की 4 आवर वर्क वीक, स्टीफन प्रेसफील्ड की द वॉर ऑफ आर्ट, एंड 3 मेमोरीज, ड्रीम्स एंड रिफ्लेक्शंस बाय कार्ल यूंग। आप ये तीनों ऑडियो बुक सुन सकते हो ऑडिबल पे. आपको कुछ नहीं करना है, दोस्तकास्ट कोड यूज़ करना है और आपको 2 महीने का ऑडिबल फ्री मिल जाएगा. टाइम मत वेस्ट करो. मैं ऐसा मानता हूँ 2023 के अंदर जो पावर मूव बिहेवियर होता है ना, जो की स्टोन बिहेवियर होता है, जो आपकी ज़िंदगी की प्रोडक्टिविटी या आपके जो भी गोल्स हैं, बेसिक एक अच्छा कंजम्पशन पैटर्न है किसी भी चीज़ को कंज्यूम करना, ऑडियो बुक, वो आप कर सकते हो. ऑडिबल पर जाके कोड यूज़ करना है दोस्तकास्ट, आपको 2 महीने ऑफ मिलेंगे. इस अपॉर्चुनिटी को वेस्ट मत करो. डाउनलोड ऑडिबल फ्रॉम द लिंक इन द डिस्क्रिप्शन. एंड नाउ बैक टू द एपिसोड.
Like, I haven't even interacted with the code base. We have not interacted. Like some YouTuber covered it recently. I don't know what his name is, but he just covered it recently on 3 tools, video on 3 tools, and he got like 100K views on day 1, right? And that brought us like some 200 people from all over the world, none of them Indians, using God in a Box, right? So God in a Box took us 2 days to build. You've seen Aevy. Aevy uses a lot of AI. Like a lot of our backgrounds are generated by AI because we have copyright issues sometimes. And I don't know if you remember, but one of my videos went down because we used some part of somebody's image in our thumbnail, right? So we've now just outsourced the entire thing to DALL-E. We put in an existing image we like, and it just spits out something that's similar. If you look closely at our background, you'll see some of the AI artifacts. So we also use a lot of ChatGPT. So I feel like companies are shrinking, but decision making is never going to go out of fashion. But the problem with decision making is, a lot of people arrive at a position of power, either with capital allocation or decision making, because they have taken some risks in life, right? You've taken a risk. When you started your podcast, like I remember your Instagram, you used to do poetry on Instagram, right?
Right.
It was like the time, I mean, if you're a serious content creator and you're spoken to me, I would be like, that's great, but the time is too small.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
The target addressable market. Now you get that.
Your best bet is like sad people in Mumbai in a poetry cafe.
In South
That's
Bombay, not even Mumbai.
Yeah, in South Bombay.
South Mumbai. So all those things matter, but because you had that experience, you now know that you must make XYZ decisions. But now that you own this channel, and I would argue, like I keep saying this confuses so many people. Being a content creator is smart in this environment. Creating content is a dumb idea. And the difference is who owns the channel. Because you could create content for other people, right? Which is what most of people in media do. You create content for other people. But owning the channel, owning Times of India, NDTV, Vinamre's podcast, right? Dostcast, sorry. Those things, you can always replace yourself. Eventually, your likeness will be replaced. And that's my bet, right? Like 5 years, you'll have a Vinamra speaking like you, talking like you, on screen, asking questions without you having to commit time to it, right? And I feel like it's, if you don't start taking the risks now, I'm not talking about you, but somebody else, then you might never be in that position where you own an asset. So I think owning an asset, owning equity, owning something, owning a channel in your case, is far more valuable than just having the skill set. Like I used to keep saying skills are important, and yes, skills are very important, but they're starting to fade out. AI is very good at narrow task sets, and yeah, that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, bro. If you remember, there's this company called Podcast.ai, and they came out with a small conversation between Joe Rogan and Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs has been dead for a while. It was about 20 minutes, but it was pieced together by using all the keynotes and all the quote-unquote
training data,
texts or essays that Jobs had taken out, and it already had lots of hours of Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
And when you listen to the podcast, it's 90% accuracy. If you heard it for the first time, beyond the slight ums and ahs and the kind of natural burnt tongue that you have in a real conversation, beyond that, it just felt like a real conversation. And then I recently saw, I think you only posted it on Twitter, that now Microsoft has a ChatGPT, like a DALL-E-like model called Wall-E, which is the feature of text-to-speech. And I try to access it, but I saw that it's still a research paper.
Yeah. Look, the thing about research papers in AI is if they've implemented it for, like, let's say a few samples, then they can implement it for everybody, right? Mm-hmm. And people don't understand why it's all happening together. This is the strange thing I've realized about tech, okay? Till one guy goes out and proves things, till one team, one person goes out and says, this is possible, check this out. Nobody else moves a muscle. I don't know if you know, but Google sounded code red, right? The Google
On what?
CEO, Sundar Pichai, he said that the minute ChatGPT came out, he's like, this is a threat to our core business, which is search. We got to build our own ChatGPT. It's a code red sounded for the first time inside Google, right? Which is why, by the way, a lot of people ask me, is God in a Box a long-term business for you? I'm like, absolutely not. Because at some point, I don't know when, Google's going to put this on home screens. By which time we would have made some cash and then figured out what to do with that, right? But the idea is you have to be smart enough to make those decisions. But coming back, right? So I feel like the reason it's all happening together is now there's confidence. Funding's going in there. All the capital that went in through Web3 last year is now sort of making its way back into AI, right? And VCs bet. The venture capitalists bet. They're like, crypto, maybe it'll work. And a lot of us make fun of them and say, well, you wasted $5 million, $10 million, etc., right? But it doesn't matter. Like somebody like Tiger has billions of dollars in AUM, right? Like assets under management. They can afford to make a lot of mistakes. So, and they'll be right. Very often, once in a while, like 1 in 10 times they'll be right. And that one company they're right on is going to make outsized returns. Like Khosla Ventures invested in OpenAI very early. They've probably made an outsized return, like an insane amount of return, right? So once that funding activity comes in, then entrepreneurs start. Because they're like, hey, there's a career here, right? And one thing people forget with machine learning, which is, everything that underlies AI, is there are two kinds of machine learning. One is research, which is done by, those boring people with glasses, those academicians, sitting in some lab, concocting things on a computer. And then there's applied ML, right? Applied machine learning, which is you take a model that already exists and you put it in a real world situation. So what's happening right now is this bridge between academia and the real world, applied, stuff is shortening. In fact, for the first time ever, we're seeing academics work inside of companies very deeply. Earlier, they used to. In pharma, we've seen this, right? Some guy in some lab will come up with some chemical and then tie up with, Pfizer and say, hey, let's commercialize this. It used to happen. But in the tech world, they've always hated each other. But now because the capital is coming in, because these people are getting aligned, they're seeing that there's huge monetary opportunity here, everyone's getting in on the game. Right? So what's happening is this entire industry is like floating up together. That's why you're seeing all these innovations back to back to back. You know how many people I know in this space who are building ChatGPT for customer support? It's like at least 100 independent companies. Do you know how many people are building DALL-E for video? At least 100 companies, right? There's a particular problem statement, right? Which is dubbing. How do you dub Hindi to English, English to Hindi, etc., etc.? Do you have any idea how many people in India are working on it? Like a lot.
Are there any successful models already out?
Yeah, of course. There's websites like Easy Dubs. I just heard about them recently. There's one more called Dubverse. You can actually do it. You can put your video out and it'll dub your language into local languages. And you know what? Aevy was actually planning to hire a dubbing guy or a girl for like 15, 20K a month, pay that person to dub our content in Hindi, like pure Hindi and pure Kannada and pure Telugu. Now we don't need that anymore, right? Because it's good.
That's insane.
It's good enough. It's good enough. And with Valley, or Wally, I don't know how they pronounce it yet because it starts with the V and I know Wally starts with the W.
Indians can't pronounce a V for the life of them.
Yeah. So, whatever it's called, I think it's definitely going to replace these sort of people who do this translation, right? Because now dubbing's happening in my own voice, right? The Hindi videos will have my voice when I'm presenting. The Kannada videos will have my voice when I'm presenting without me having to move a muscle, right? Which is crazy. In fact, I don't know if people know, this is how we do research, right? For Aevy, we have a bot. So here's what we do, right? It's so simple. You want to do a case study on, let's say, Zerodha. Just go to Twitter, type Zerodha, okay? And you can do advanced search and sort by threads, right? Sort by, anything with more than 1,000 likes. And you get so much data, you can just dump it into ChatGPT and it'll create a great story for you. It is that simple, right? We don't do that. Obviously, we have researchers who also go out to Reddit and all over the internet. But it's very easy to ingest content. And what is most valuable is the channel itself. Because once you have a vehicle to do this, and yesterday a founder was telling me, right? Like I think the smartest thing about the company, the invention of a company is that it's a vehicle. It's a vehicle where you can do whatever you want, right? So once that vehicle's brand has been built, then you can start anything with that brand. Like Swiggy did Instamart right after it did Swiggy, right? Like the core platform. Now it's doing something else. I think they're doing Swiggy Genie, which is sort of like Dunzo. So once you have that core trust, and I think Tata proved this in India, once people trust you, then you can sell everything from Salt to the Nano, right? So I think that is far more valuable than anything. India is an under-branded country, right? And all these tools are just going to make brands more powerful.
Varun, what do you think about Sam Altman, the guy who started OpenAI? What is his incentive in essentially not putting this behind a paywall, making it free, and creating an ecosystem as opposed to a SaaS-based startup that you can pay $8 a month to get access to some language processing? Like, why did he just open it up to the world? And why are they all pursuing this open for all AI as opposed to putting it behind a paywall?
Yeah, you can ask yourself the same question. There's actually a company that's done this very successfully for years, right? That's kept it free, open, and then figured out how to monetize later. It's called Google, right? So Google's a free open search, it's not open source, but it's open. It's an open search engine, right? I can ask it any question, and Google will spit out 10 relevant answers or 10 clues to relevant answers. It's like a trail. It's leaving you breadcrumbs. With ChatGPT, if you keep it open, eventually one of their fundas is this could disrupt search, right? And weirdly, in every industry, when you create something new, there'll always be like an early adopter set. And it turned out the early adopter set in this industry is all the marketeers who want to make landing page copy. It's weird, but there's crazy adoption there. Jasper, which is an AI company that basically just built on top of GPT-3, right? And built, you can create marketing copy. There's another company called Copy.ai. I'm sure you've seen this, right? We use it all.
I have. There's something called Writer.ai as well, which also does the same.
Exactly, right? So what are they? They're just wrappers on top of GPT. But that Jasper is $1 billion company, right? On one very simple use case. And one very simple market, which is, I'm going to do this, but for people in marketing, right? Next, I'm very sure we're going to have customer support. In fact, I remember many years ago, I posted this on my Instagram, where Google had come up with a bot that could make appointments on your behalf. I don't know if you've seen it.
I have not. How did that do that? Or automatically based on preferences or busy or free times?
Yeah, it knows you, and maybe you just tell it, hey, book me you say, hey Siri, or hey Alexa, or whatever, just book me an appointment with the nearest hair salon for 5 p.m. tomorrow. And that's it. It'll do it for you. It'll call that person up. It'll say, hi, my name is blah, blah, blah. I would like to book a ticket. I would like to, book an appointment for tomorrow at 5 p.m. It does that, right? So I feel like next customer support is like under threat. And do you know how many customer support representatives live in India?
A lot. It's the bread and butter of the rest of the world.
Exactly, right? We have words for it. We have strange words for it, right? We have like rooms full of people just sitting down, taking calls on behalf of other people. I remember when I was selling my first company, one of the companies who was looking at us, this was Head Honchos in Delhi. And they were telling me about their customer support. And they were saying that, look, customer support people here, and they have like a huge customer support team. They're like, our only job is to do part-time therapy, and the other part-time we're selling, right? That's our job. So who does that? Like, humans have a barrier. You can't abuse a human forever, but you can abuse an AI forever. And an AI is cheaper, right? And ChatGPT can calm you down even if you're very angry with it, right? It will go, like the only thing is, like somebody ran this research where the minute people knew that it was ChatGPT on the other side, they completely lost, the flow of thought, because they're like, dude, I thought I was having a personal conversation with a human. I don't know. It's going to be crazy times.
Yeah, I've been trying to log in again since last night, but apparently the servers have been down.
You can use
I tried again
box.
Before this. Oh, of course, I will use your service. But I'm just saying, what is it? Is AI having its moment now because of just quick adoption on Twitter? Like, how is it that we're, for example, on today's January 11th, how is it on January 11th? It's probably the worst time to access ChatGPT because it's so overoccupied. The services are all overwhelmed. What do you think happened in the last few weeks that propelled AI into like the mainstream conversation, at least on tech Twitter?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, there's a snowball effect, right? I always feel like tech Twitter, like the tech part of Twitter, the few accounts I would say in tech Twitter, right? They are the early birds. In fact, when tech Twitter is talking about something, it's still very niche, right?
Right.
Then that gets picked up by media, okay? The New York Times will post about it, Times of India will post about it, etc., etc. Recently, I saw somebody at Aaj Tak, if I'm not wrong, talk to ChatGPT on live, camera, right? They did a news segment about it, right? So that's how it spreads. Because for everyone, including you and me, it's also content. Right? It's something interesting to talk about, to report about. So we did a video about AI on Aevy. So I feel like it's just, there's a snowball effect with anything that's truly valuable. Anything that's so mind-bogglingly different from what humans are used to, we're bored, right? Like, we're almost always bored. And the minute something completely new that blows our brain comes out, it's going to create conversation and create content. And because it creates content, it's going to create more conversation and so on and so forth. But now all the smart people have moved to AI. In fact, I'll tell you one thing, right? I personally know of at least 100 founders in India. We have like these WhatsApp groups who are all considering just shutting down their companies that are all doing well and just moving to AI. And, it's strange that this is happening in India, because India is, always like a log kya kahenge ecosystem. In the US, nobody cares. Like, people shut down companies all the time if they find better opportunities. But in the US, but in India, the going logic among these smart people is, this technology is so good that it might fundamentally change the way humans do things. In 5 years, we might all be jobless. And there are people, like I'm in the camp that actually believes this. Because people don't understand exponential growth. You're like, like last year when GPT-3 came out, people were like, this can create marketing copy, but it's not that great. Then now ChatGPT's come out a year later, right? And I'm sure next year something else is going to come out that's going to blow our brains. I'm sure this year something's going to come out that's going to blow our brains, right? DALL-E came out last year. So I understand exponential growth, and I also understand that maybe there were like 200 people, serious people, working on this problem 10 years ago. Right? Maybe more than 200. 200 is a small number. Maybe like 2,000 serious people, and then maybe another 10,000, 20,000 enthusiasts. Now there are millions of people working on this problem. All the way from the grifters who are coming from Web3 to people who are dead serious, been in this space for like 10 years and now found the opportunity, to people, let's say in video, like Canva's adopted AI. Right? They put DALL-E inside. Bing has put DALL-E inside Bing. Right? So everyone's adopting it. And Microsoft's not, Microsoft is literally spending $10 billion on this. Right? There's a reason for it. And it's strange because Microsoft can see the numbers behind. They probably know how much usage is going on. And
there's a lot of hype about GPT-4 as well, right? I mean, when I looked at it and I saw your tweet and I just started Googling it, and the first question that came to my mind was, first of all, what the fuck are parameters? And second, I don't think people have even properly adopted GPT-3, and there's already a GPT-4. So do you have any predictions for that? What is that going to look like? Should people be concerned? Should people jump on the bandwagon now if they're dilly-dallying?
Yeah, so I'll tell you, right? Like, there are two ways to look at things. Let me take the example of, let's say, a 19-year-old kid who's in college, right? For you, it's very obvious. You're 19, you see this tech coming out, you think, okay, by the time college, and I'm talking about you're in the first year of college, right? So you have plenty of time to plan. We have 4 years. Your question is, in 4 years, where is this tech going to be? Because I don't care about GPT-4, GPT-5, because the minute GPT-4 comes out, some other guy, there's actually another model now called Anthropic AI, right? It has an assistant called Claude or something like that, right? There's one more that recently came out that's open source. It's garbage, but whatever. People are trying, right? The open source community is trying. So, you think about, aaj ya kal chodo, 4 saal mein kya hoga? Right? And I feel like the progress here is so exponential that in 4 years, everything that we're doing right now might be irrelevant. Might be done by bots. In fact, it'll just be bots talking to each other. Right? So, honestly, I don't have predictions for what GPT-4 will do, but I do have predictions for what's going to happen in 4 or 5 years, which is that most of us are going to be unemployed. And there'll be this top 0.1% that controls everything.
But don't you think that's a very nihilistic approach? I'm sure people will immediately get on the bandwagon like they did with crypto and Web3 and at least learn. And we're going to have a bigger penetration of AI and ChatGPT and all these other technologies in our daily lives than people expect now.
Yeah. But here's the thing, right? One company, and look, this is one of those fields, and I didn't see this with crypto, but I'm seeing this with AI, right? It's one of those fields where the largest companies have already started adopting it. If I decided, okay, tomorrow I'm going to make a text document software with AI in it, can I compete with Word plus ChatGPT? Because I remember Microsoft's like putting AI, ChatGPT inside of Word, PowerPoint, etc.
Right. It always has, hasn't it? Isn't like prediction when you write a word, it already suggests the possible words. Wasn't that some kind of like an old AI?
No, but this is different. Now you can spawn like entire sentences. Like it's ChatGPT. It's the entire whole hog. You have a line and you want to expand it, you can expand it. In fact, I saw a demo of a writer. This is on YouTube. I saw a demo of a person who put a one-line, prompt of something like, she's writing a book of something like Hogwarts, right? Like something like Harry Potter. So there's a little magical school or whatever, but it's slightly different thesis with werewolves and vampires and stuff. She gave it like a couple of lines of prompt and generated a lot of text for her. She did that 3 times because she didn't like the first set of text, and then she liked the third idea. So you're like, I'm going to go with the third idea, right? So it's also an idea. Like again, I'm sure you know this, but writing is not about writing. It's about thinking.
Right.
Good writing is about what thoughts are going on in your brain. And AI is actually paradoxically prompting us. Like when we prompt an AI and it generates some text, it is also prompting us.
Right.
People forget this, right? So let me give you an example. I tell the AI, well, I'm writing a book about vampires and werewolves. Give me something. Give me more content. Give me a plot. And the werewolf and the AI gives you a plot saying, well, there are 2 vampires, they're brothers, and then there's a werewolf, and the werewolf is like, can transform only once in 14 days, and then they live in a prison called blah, blah, blah. And then that prompts you. Because you're imagining all these things. As I said this, your brain was constructing these vampire brothers and the werewolf and the prison and blah, blah, blah. And now your brain's going to continue. Right? Your brain's going to prompt and be like, okay, prison now, in the prison, we'll make sure that the vampire is starving. Whatever, I'm coming up with random BS, but the point I'm saying is, it's a conversation between us and AI. And that's why I feel like eventually, with Neuralink and stuff, eventually I think 10, 20, 30, I don't know when, but some point down the line, we are directly going to be able to prompt ChatGPT in our brain and get a prompt back.
That's insane. If that happens, we're going to completely get rid of any amount of original thinking that requires firing up some synapses in our brain and thinking about ideas that haven't necessarily come together in our heads before.
Just so you know, right? I don't know if you know this, but your prefrontal and neocortex, the newest parts of the human brain, are already prompting your limbic system and vice versa.
Okay.
Like for example, let me do this with you, okay? Just close your eyes, whoever's listening to this, okay? I want you to think of you're sitting on the terrace of a nice pad in Goa, okay? And it's slightly drizzling. There's a smell of like wet mud, and it's cold, okay? And it's probably December, and there's a person that's coming up to you, a waiter that's coming up to you, and you're alone there, okay? You're on a table and you're sitting down. There's a little bit of a breeze and a little bit of a drizzle, and a waiter comes up to you and gives you steaming banana cakes, okay? Believe it or not, I just prompted your limbic system. In fact, I prompted you, you prompted your limbic system. Right? Because now your limbic system actually thought these tastes, smells, those feelings, basically. Right? We went all the way to the feelings layer. So, we're doing that all the time. Our brain's doing that to us all the time. Many people are not aware of it. That's why those are people who are easy to outrage on the internet. You give them some emotional fodder and suddenly, next day they're like burning things down. Right? That's people without separation between their limbic system and their prefrontal cortex. And I feel with AI, we still need to have that separation, which is our decision-making layer, which is effectively going to be the only thing valuable in a human being going 10 or 20 years down the line. And whatever assets we own to our name.
Yeah. I remember you mentioned once in a tweet when GPT had just come out that all the creators on the internet who have relied on platitudes and content strategies that basically just is a repackaging of things that other people have said. Stuff like look before you leap, keep your friends close and your enemies closer, that kind of stuff. They're really going to have to develop a personality if they want to strike out now, at least with their writing. And I was perplexed by that because, with everyone doing the same thing, where do you think they will go? Because what I see with my content creator friends is they're now using ChatGPT and AI to essentially write tweets for them. But for some reason, I have a suspicion that it's not going to go very far.
Yeah. It's strange, right? It's the reason Andrew Tate works. The human brain has a way to seek out novelty. anything that we see repeated pattern, because see, just like AI, in essence, is a pattern recognition machine. Like machine learning is statistics on steroids. We are the same.
Right.
We determine patterns. We don't know why we're determining the patterns, and we have unconscious formula. Like it's the difference between traditional programming and machine learning, right? In traditional programming, I mean, this is a simplification, but I'll make the simplification anyway. In traditional programming, you write the rules. Somebody gives you the inputs, you write the rules, and you get the outputs. In machine learning, somebody gives you the inputs and the outputs, and the machine figures out the rules. Humans do sort of the same thing. You show me 100 pictures of a dog and tell me this is a dog. Show me the 101st picture and I'll tell you it's a dog. Because now I've recognized the features unconsciously of what makes a dog and what is, a bedsheet that looks like a dog. Right? Because AI used to keep getting confused about this in the past, but now computing has gotten stronger. It's gotten like near human level, which is why it's able to distinguish. Like people keep making this joke about AI still can't tell the difference between a dog and a cat. That era is over. Sorry, that was 4 years ago. That was when it had the intelligence of an ant. Now it's like near human level intelligence, right? So to answer your question of, we are pattern recognition engines as well. And slowly but surely, you and I have both, I'm sure it's also happened to other people. We have all sort of figured out when content is generated by ChatGPT. Because our pattern recognition engines are good as well. So we can tell, but it's getting, there are still places where if you're a smart prompter, you can still fool the human.
Yeah.
Right? But eventually it's going to become easier and easier to fool the human. But it's the same with us, right? Like there's so many YouTube channels. Why do people watch Tate? Why do people watch you? Why do people watch Aevy? Because in some senses, all three of our content is extreme. Ours in production, yours in conversation, Tate's in, insanity. Right? So people come for extremism that ChatGPT has been banned from saying. And that seems to be the opportunity. Right? Sadly, that ChatGPT is not allowed to say certain things, and anytime somebody's saying those things, it's not generated by ChatGPT.
Right, which is what I wanted to talk to you about also, because I remember we had the same problem with DALL-E. For example, if you wanted to, say, make a picture of Varun Mayya smashing into a billboard on a highway in Bangalore, it would essentially give you a warning saying that you can't name people that are alive, right? And here in ChatGPT, it's the same thing. Why do you think that's the case? Why do you think we cannot? I mean, is it to protect the privacy of people? Like, are there people in other AI startups who bypass that, who can actually create real life fan fictions of living people? Like, is there a threat to maybe like a misinformation war going on? Why do they have such stringent policies around naming people and using actual people in their outputs?
Yeah. They open themselves up to litigation, effectively. Because if you say Vinamre Kasana sitting on a throne, upside down, on the bathroom or whatever, some rubbish, you might get angry and sue them. Because it's your image, generated by some DALL-E, right? So that's why they don't allow you to do that. But I'm very sure there are going to be open source models that allow you to do that. I'm very sure, like, ChatGPT is woke. Because it's been created by people that don't want lawsuits. And the craziest people on the internet right now are people from the extreme left in the US. Okay? So they're protecting themselves from that. They don't want that. Okay? However, there are lots of other models, and they're going to be open source ones that don't care about this. They're going to be anonymous people who release models where you can do whatever you want with it. For example, I don't know if you've seen, but on Aevy, we had this video about Bollywood. Did you see that video?
I think I saw the one with Ranbir Kapoor.
Yeah, it's the one with Ranbir Kapoor, but that's not a real Ranbir Kapoor. We deepfaked
Yes,
him.
I did see that, yeah.
So that deepfake was done with a software called Deepface Lab or something like that, or Deepfake Lab or something like that. It's a very primitive software. We don't know who made it. I'm very sure no top tier company in the world would create that software and distribute it because it's dangerous. Right? So again, the best models are going to come from the niches of the internet. I don't think they're going to come by. I mean, now that we have ChatGPT, we can reverse engineer it. Like even I sort of know what ChatGPT is doing, right? And I'm sure there are smarter people, much smarter people in research. I'm more like an applied, I'm a computer science engineer. So I can do anything in computer science, right? And with AI, I stick to the applied parts because it interests me, right? But there are lots of people to whom the research matters. And those people are going to start going anonymous, and there are going to be lots more of those people. So there are going to be lots of competing models. You can just pick one up and generate content. But at the same time, it's not just about generating extreme content. It's also about unique thoughts that are hard to find in other places. Unique insights, right? For example, me saying that Mama Earth, with the recent Mama Earth IPO, right? They're discounted by Amazon, and therefore they are profitable, is a unique insight, right? That's hard for GPT to pull out because it's very, very nuanced information. But then that's today, right? My only worry with AI is 5-10 years down the line, even these might not be defensible against what is coming. In fact, I have, an even further thesis that I think the problem with AI is eventually with artificial general intelligence. The difference between AI and artificial general intelligence is AI right now is good for narrow tasks, okay? And artificial general intelligence is when you create an AI that can do human level tasks. It's a human for all means and purposes.
Such as writing a paper. Would you qualify that as a human level task? Or even picking up groceries? Would you qualify that as a human level task?
Yeah. So you'll have to give it. So let's do this, right? And this is a fun experiment to do. What are the tasks? What are the parts of humans that make these tasks possible? Let's go through them one by one, okay? You want to pick up groceries.
Consciousness, sabse pehle.
What?
Consciousness. You need to be conscious enough to do that.
Forget about consciousness. Leave conscious out of the picture, right? Because I would argue that you don't need consciousness to be able to do all that. And in fact, I would argue even further that consciousness is a side effect, not a driving force. These are my...
Okay.
Again, I have to be very clear what is my opinion and what we know in fact, right? So let's go to the fact part first. You want to pick up groceries. Can a blind person pick up groceries? No. So we'll start by a process of elimination, okay? We'll take a normal human, we'll shut off different senses, and we'll see which are enough senses for him to do grocery picking. A blind person can't pick up groceries. He can't go to the store, he can't pick up groceries, right? So you need vision.
Right.
So you need a model of vision, right? Item recognition, and then you need to put that information in the brain, and you need to avoid obstacles and blah, 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 and you need to do shortest path analysis. And actually, let's do the brain parts later. We need vision. You need hearing. Hearing is important. Right? Because if you're walking the road and a car drives on you when on your way to the grocery store, you're going to die. So you need some model of hearing. You need some model of getting acoustic input and then being able to process that and figure out what's a threat and what's not. Then you need a body, right? And the reason you need a body is you need locomotion. You need to be able to move, right? And then you need finer control of your arms, and then you need finer control of your fingers. Because one big difference between us and a cat is a cat can't run around with a grocery bag. So you need fine control of the fingers to be able to pick it up, and we can do strange things with our fingers, which is hard to do. And all of these will require different models, right? Or maybe you could say the fingers are not necessary. We can just have some other system, maybe a hook or a grapple or whatever, that can pick up these things. Or maybe we can have 10 fingers. If you have 5, might as well have 10, right? And then that's a trade-off between how the model creator wants to do things. So technically, you have these 10, 20 different types of models interfacing with each other. And this is where the opinion part comes out. My belief is that if you have a system that's interfacing 10 artificial intelligence, or artificial intelligence is the wrong word, here it's intelligence with human beings, right? You have 10 models interfacing these things together via a network of neurons, you essentially create consciousness. Whatever thing does that is probably conscious. A lot of people believe that chickens are not conscious. I disagree. I think chickens are definitely conscious. Maybe not as conscious as human beings because they're not processing as much information, but they're definitely somewhat vaguely conscious. It's like a human being on ketamine, right? Or
too much consciousness leads to depression in Russian novels.
Yeah, ketamine is the wrong example. Maybe it's a human on lots of Valium. You have slight, actually that's also wrong because cats or chickens have great balance and we lose our balance. But basically, it's like a weaker version of our consciousness, right? So I feel like you interface many of these things together, you have consciousness, and then, you also have different levels of consciousness. So an ant is less conscious than us. A tapeworm is even less conscious than an ant because, and there's some species of tapeworm that don't have central nervous systems. They're only peripheral nervous systems. They can feel pain, they will react to pain, but they don't process that in a central unit. I don't know if the central unit, the CPU is necessary. CPU is the wrong word, but I'm just simplifying it. But I don't know if the central processing unit is even necessary for you to have some level of consciousness. And you could go crazy with that argument, right? You could say the computer that I run, the laptop that I run is also conscious. Because it's got a sound model, it's got a vision model, webcam, it's got a display, which is its output. It's got keys, which is input, touch input. It's got a brain, which is the CPU. It's got graphics processing unit, etc., etc. And you could also argue then, and I think Daniel C. Dennett argues for this, which is that consciousness is not, like Vinamre Kasana's consciousness in this conversation is not for him. It is for Varun. It is a way for me to interact with you, right? It is the same with a computer. Like a computer screen is a way for me to, like a computer is, I interact with the computer and the screen gives me output. Your words, your eyes, your body language gives me output. But I am prompting it with inputs. And the same thing we do with our computers, right? So that's his model of consciousness. I sort of believe it. And I think it, your own awareness of consciousness is a side effect of this happening.
Got it. Man, I wanted to ask you one more thing about the application of AI-based tools in our daily lives. I mean, I'm not sure that everyone who's listening to this has an army of coders they can use to train language models and build their own AI. But how far are we from no-code AI tools or no-code LLM deployment, stuff like that, where you can basically just build something like an AI tool for yourself and then you can buy it as a SaaS offering?
So I think two parts, right? For those of, actually before these two parts, I want to tell you, for those of you who have never used OpenAI Playground, which is the place where you create your own AI model, you probably don't know how ChatGPT is prompted. Okay, so let me tell you, the initial prompt for ChatGPT is so obvious that you might be able to write that code tomorrow. It's not even code, it's just text. So it's literally like you go into the OpenAI Playground and you say, the following is a conversation between an AI called assistant and a human being. The AI assistant is friendly, clever, and called blah, blah, blah. Okay? Here is a sample conversation. Hi, this is blah, blah, blah. And then you give the human prompt, hello. And then the AI says something. And then you give it a mock conversation. It's almost like the instructions you'd give your developer and say, yaar, aisa hona hai. Right? Aisa ek system banao. So it's almost like that, right? So I feel like eventually natural language to code is possible. I think right now the gap is deployment, because it's not very easy to just, okay, you build a program. How do you deploy it? How do you put it on AWS or wherever? So the tools will get simpler. In 3 or 4 years, you can just have natural language out there to put these tools out. But there is still a reason to learn code, okay? And I'll tell you why. And I've been doing some very deep thinking along this. And people don't know this, but for many years, people have asked me and my team to make a coding course or a coding cohort. And we've always said no, because it's just too much effort, right? Because we also believe in outcomes. So you've got to do placements and stuff. So like, it's just too much effort. We can't do it right now. And then when AI came out, a lot of people said, well, good decision. You didn't have to do it. And I'm like, no, don't get me wrong. It's not like we didn't do it because we thought AI was coming out. It's because it's still necessary. Here is why. You don't know whether the code that's coming out of AI is rubbish or not. AIs, like human beings, hallucinate. The problem with not being, and I've seen this, right? Some founders who have employees who are
What do you mean AIs hallucinate?
What do you say? Yeah,
what do you mean? Yeah.
So what I mean by AIs hallucinate is like this, right? Let's say you have a junior developer. You're a founder and you have no experience writing code. You have no experience building apps. So what? So essentially, what you're trying to do is you're going to this junior developer and like, ye bana. And the developer gives you some code. How do you know whether it's good or bad? How do you know what the performance of that code is going to be? How do you know if it even does what you want? How do you know the nuance, the edge cases of what's happening? You have no idea. You have no way, no yardstick to measure it. It's not like content on YouTube where the performance of content is just determined by views or likes or comments. There are 3 very easy metrics for the end user who doesn't have YouTube Studio access, the back-end access, to be able to tell the performance of a video. It's not the same with code. You can't tell whether what you've been handed is a second-hand car with like things broken inside or whether it's like pristine. Plus, the more I think about it, the more I realize giving clear prompts to a computer, there's a language for it. There's a way to do it, and it's called writing code. So when I find myself interfacing with ChatGPT, and I use ChatGPT a lot, I find myself talking to ChatGPT like I would write code. I know that sounds weird, but it's almost like I want you to do something very specific. If this happens, then do this. And keep doing this till this happens. And then I realized I'm just writing if statements and for statements. Sorry, loop
So
statements.
you're probably a better prompt engineer than, say, the average person who's toying with it and using it like a Siri or a voice assistant.
100%. Right? So there's two parts. There's also you got to deploy it later. Right? So, and that requires things like how do I write code with a friend? How do I commit together? How do we resolve our conflict? So I feel like you still need to know code. Right? And I've thought a lot about, can we just exclude it? It's not possible. Right? Coding is the ultimate prompting language. We've always had a prompting language, it turns out. And it's called code. Right? Except now it's more accessible. You don't need to know things like syntax, but you still need to know exactly how it works beneath the hood. Right? Now, the second question you asked is, do people need to learn AI? The answer is no. Right? I don't think you need to learn how to create a machine learning model. I do think you need to learn how to apply AI.
While you're doing that, I just have a tweet that came up on my feed that says, you're growing up with ChatGPT, I grew up with Clippy. You remember Clippy, the assistant on Microsoft Word? And it just, you type, I have your child, and Clippy says, it looks like you're writing a ransom note. Would you like to help? Would you like help? Use stronger language, you'll get more money. And it's just a joke on that. Anyway.
Yeah. What are they saying? I forgot. Sorry, I keep losing my
You were
train of
talking
thought.
about how you would not need to essentially learn how to make AI, but you would need to learn how to apply it or maybe learn better prompts.
Yeah. And you don't need to learn machine learning. You don't need to be a researcher unless that's your thing. You'll probably need to learn how to apply it. Like God in a Box is the best example of applied AI. We said, what's the best chat interface in the world right now? It's WhatsApp. My opinion, right? It's a bet. That's a decision I took. What is the best AI model right now? It's the latest version of GPT 3.5. So we just put the two together. It's applied AI.
Right.
We'll put this tech somewhere else where it's more accessible to people. And today, a lot of people who use God in a Box are all sales reps. And they like the ability for them to do whatever, text on WhatsApp and just forward it to whoever. Right? They love being able to forward things to God in a Box and get answers. So it's a lot of that. And this is the reason why even we are strongly considering doing like a coding cohort. Aevy does video cohorts, and video is very clear, by the way, for me. Like, what's the long-term plan with video? It's the only moat. Like, text is dying. And I'm sure you've seen this, right? You'll probably listen to the tweets of like 5 people in the world, people who have deep insight into a particular domain.
Well, I usually listen to whoever I am most trying to model my Twitter after. That's it.
Got it. And people who have deep domain expertise. Like when I was younger, by the way, I used to do this foolish thing when I was like 23, 24. If I followed someone on Twitter and they didn't follow me back, I'd unfollow them. I was young and stupid. But today I follow, and I used to follow like popular people. Anyone who's popular in the real world, I'd follow. Today I follow the most weird machine learning engineers with like an anime profile picture but post high signal tweets.
Right.
Right? So it's like I've got laser targeted on who I follow, and my web is wide. Like I also follow a lot of people who do Unreal Engine, right? I also follow like experts at it. I follow a lot of people who do content, right? I follow you because you create content, and there's a lot of learnings that you're probably going to have that instead of me learning it the hard way, I can just learn it from your tweets, right? And I just need to know enough about these industries to be able to relate to them. And luckily with game dev, I know a lot. I started my career there. With software, it's if you've done game dev, you've done software. It's sort of the same thing. And I've always danced between the two. And content is something that's relatively new for me, right? So if tomorrow, let's say you put up a tweet about something related to CPMs or something related to how you've improved sub counts, right? Over the last few videos, I'd understand and I'd be able to implement it. So that's why I follow these people, right? It's super high signal. So that's why we do, that's why I feel like it's more important who you follow, the kind of assets you have. And I think digitally distribution is a great asset. In fact, I would argue that 10 years ago, if you ask people whether they wanted followers on social media or like a Merc, they'd ask for a Merc. Today, if you ask people, do you want 1 million followers on social media or a Merc, they choose 1 million followers. So it's also a
Our
status.
status signals have changed. We've gone from prestige to clout.
Yeah, it's just, we have different status signals now, right? The blue tick paradoxically is important. And you can do whatever you want to the old blue tick, it's still relevant. Like Elon Musk changed it into, this is a legacy account, it may or may not be notable. It says that on my thing, right? But paradoxically, that's become the sign of status now, right? So it's like, you create a distributive asset. Like in my opinion, video is very important because if you create a distribution asset, you can keep producing stuff, which is sort of like what I've started doing, right? And my bet is next year, I'll be doing 100 things, right? Simply because the latency from me thinking up an idea to that being deployed will be 2 days, 3 days, right? And because I have distribution, I can always spread it, which is why we're kind of doubling down on that go-to-market and distribution, right? That's why you see an entrepreneur like me sitting on YouTube dancing. It makes no sense. It makes zero sense. Everyone in the industry is like, what, do you want to be an actor? I'm like, absolutely not. You don't get what I'm doing. You'll know in 5 years when the only asset you have, your product, 10 other people have it, or 100 other people have it, or some kid with a laptop, 16-year-old kid has the same product as you, right? Whereas businesses like Zomato are still safe because they have that delivery network, they have that offline distribution, right? I still think things like an offline events business is very valuable, right? Because you have the ability to, you have a network that is not easily replicatable by somebody else. And I feel like even if you're getting into the coding part, even if you're getting into building products, you still need to understand the thesis behind building a good product. And fundamentally, right, if you have to go one level deeper, what joins code, like building good products, one second. What joins building good products and creating good distribution is just one thing. Understanding of human beings. I'm sure we can agree on that, right? If we both, if you understand human beings and you have AI at your disposal, you can do anything. And one good thing that's happened over the last year through all my successes and failures is I have understood humans. I've run a minimum of 50 life experiments, okay? Most of them digital. I know what works, I know what doesn't, right? Unafraid. Like if something doesn't work, like tomorrow if Google launches whatever their equivalent GPT on the home screen of Google, I will shut down God in a box. It's not worth the fight. It's not worth the time, energy, effort, whatever, right? It doesn't mean it's a failure. I've learned so much. It's printed cash by the time it's existed. So it's also about that. But I feel like we have a lot of these sunk costs. Like there'll be some kid doing some BA of something in something, a 5-year degree, and the kid will be like, I can't quit or I can't do something else because I'm stuck doing this. Well, good luck. 5 years, I have no idea where GPT is going to be. And I'm getting more and more confident in saying this because I've always, like 3 or 4 years ago, I also put up a video about this OpenAI arm that they were working with, right? And it's very strange because what they were doing is they were taking videos, or they were simulating arms in a 3D environment, making it pick up stuff because the 3D model can pick up stuff well. You can create, you can model it in such a way that it always picks up stuff properly. Learn from that environment and apply that in the real world. Can you imagine? It was using its fingers based on how it uses its fingers in a 3D environment. You can always be right in a 3D environment. So, when I put that content out, a lot of people are like, hey, this is not going to come into the real world. Right? And I was fighting for it. When that Google audio thing came out, I was fighting for it. So now it's more like people are like, actually, Varun, you're right. Because I remember my own co-founder, Shashank, once told me, Varun, you say so much stuff about AI. And this is like many years ago. He's like, I've never seen anything valuable, honestly. It sounds like a buzzword that an upgrad would sell you. It doesn't seem valuable. And hey, now we've reached an environment where suddenly everyone's like, oh shit, what just happened? Right? And I feel like 2 years down the line, it's going to be even more, oh shit, what just happened? Right? Until the point where it's like, oh, how do I get a job? Yeah, it's sad times.
Bro, I'm sure there's a bunch of upskillers in the audience who are either the typical run-of-the-mill editor, graphic designer, coder. I'm about to quit college. I live in a tier 3 city, tier 2 city. And they're all in a limbo where they might not be sure about what skill to learn for the next 5 years. Say, for example, when I was in college, it was important. I was in the early years of building distribution. Now I have Dostcast because now it's clearly the era of distribution and podcasting, at least in India. But I saw, for example, all the 16, 17-year-olds who turned 16 or 17 in the pandemic, they were bullish on Discord and coding. So with this new buzzword, prompt engineering, now coming into the fore, first, number one, how can people become prompt engineers? And second, where do you think all of these younger people can essentially get jobs or, make themselves rich in this AI boom in India?
Got it. Yeah, I don't think prompt engineering is a real job. Apologies. And here's why. The best, see, there are two kinds of prompts you can get back from AI, right? And Da Vinci has two models. Like OpenAI has two text models, right? One is for code, one is for text, right? But technically, ChatGPT also has a code. Like the text model can also do code, right? It's strange because it's just trained on internet data. But here's the thing. If you want to generate content, you need to know English. Like the best prompt engineering is knowing English. Being really good at speaking the language, being able to give such a descriptive analysis, such a descriptive or such a description of what you want achieved that the AI is never misled. Because the way prompt engineering works is if I give it one word, let's say if I give it a word or two words, let's say if I give it the word Spider-Man script, it'll generate a script for me with some Spider-Man fighting whatever. But if I say Spider-Man fighting Venom on a rooftop, it'll give me a script where Spider-Man ended up fighting Venom on a rooftop. The more I prompt it, the more I give it constraints. It's more the art of giving constraints. And weirdly, we can use the English language to give constraints. In fact, there are two ways to think about how we think about images in our head. Okay? The first one is I give you a word, you have associative memory, and there are two theories to this. You have associative memory, you think about the first thing that comes in your, like think about the first thing that comes in your mind when I say beautiful girl. Okay? I'm not going to ask you what that is, but something came in your head, right? That's associative memory. The other way is everything is possible that your brain ever knows, and you are sort of conjuring this thing into action by giving it constraints. I've flattened this sphere of everything you know. Now, by saying these two words, I flattened it to like a small list of examples, and you're taking the top one out of it and giving it to me. There are two theories, right? Now, with ChatGPT, it's sort of like that. The better you know English, the better you create these boundary boxes, the better you're able to incant your spell.
Yeah, it's the same as working for a newspaper as a beat reporter on a specific topic where you have you can only write 50 words every single day. You can only write on a few issues, which is in stark comparison to, say, someone who fills out an endless amount of pages in a journal but has the hardest time actually writing logically.
Exactly, right? And there's a second form, right? Like I said, there are two separate models, and at the same time, they're also one. It's complicated. You guys need to use the OpenAI playground, but let me simplify it for you. The second form is when you want code from ChatGPT, okay? When you want and code is usually when you want a task accomplished. Then you need the spell language changes, it is writing code. And you don't need to necessarily write code in a particular language, you just need to be able to write pseudocode, right? Which again is both code and English, they're both a crystallization of your thoughts. But you're thinking in different ways. One you're thinking in pure logic, the other one you're thinking in incantation, right? So I feel both put together allow you to prompt ChatGPT in the best way, but those are not prompt engineering skills. That's code, that's English. Two separate skills, right? And these are skills that people have always said are valuable, right? And on the other hand, you know, for the people who are lost and don't know what to do, again, like I've said, digitally, I mean, physically, there are a lot of jobs. And I don't think we have enough training data about laborers being able to pick up stuff. I think we need AGI for that, where we need to be able to teach AI to be able to pick up anything and then tell it, go pick up bricks and put it in this particular way. We need to teach it like we teach a human. So we need to generate a human. Either you do an offline job or build a network. Technically, your YouTube channel is a network. Technically, the Avalon community is a network. Technically, some guy running an events business in the real world, you know, putting together startup events, has built a network. That is hard for a bot to just come and break, because that requires trust, which has been built over time, right? And effectively, your channel has built trust over time. That's why people watch you. It's not just the algorithm, right? In fact, the algorithm is a proxy for the trust that people have in your channel that can wax and wane over time, right? So it's one of those two things. And these are like, I'm just talking digital skills. It's either video or code. Video, we've obviously been spending a lot of time on. Code, we have been seriously considering this year to launch some sort of coding cohorts. I'll probably give you some more news on this, but it'll probably be structured like a community, right? But video, we've already gone all into. And, you know, we also believe that if somebody wants to learn something, if you're clueless, you're sitting in college and you have no idea what to do, I can't just teach you a skill for the sake of teaching a skill. Then go to Udemy or go to YouTube I need to give you placements. I need to make sure you are put in a company eventually, right? So that is the harder part, right? Getting that network of recruiters, because then an AI can't come and say, I'll teach you, because then, well, can it place you? Because teaching, honestly, there's enough YouTube channels that can teach you stuff. So how can I place you? So that is something that, we have really been working on, because I have a network and my team has a network, and since, works with a lot of companies. So we're probably making that happen this year. It'll be an experiment. It might work, it might not work. Let's see.
Yeah, I certainly think that I'm sure standalone courses have merit, but the cohort-based courses that actually promise and deliver a transformation, that's what people really buy.
Placements. Like the transformation,
placements.
we realize the magical transformation is placements. Like if I can give you a job, your confidence in life will go much higher than an Andrew Tate telling you build muscles. I'm serious. Muscles are great. Like I've been ripped when I was younger. Right? I'm no longer ripped because I don't care anymore. But when you're making like 5 LPA or 10 LPA, when before that you had no clue what you wanted to do in life, now you get some confidence to know that even if AI comes, you have some savings.
Yeah, man. Money hits different. They just showed that's just a way to solve your problems in a way you didn't expect. Before that, you're just on a self-improvement treadmill. Where do you think that cold showers and morning routines and just doing the right thing is going to solve your problem? But hand a man 50,000 rupees as an 18-year-old for something they did, temporary gig, and you change his career completely.
Have you hired from our cohort, by the way, the Aevy cohort?
I have not. No.
Okay, I'll put you in touch with the recruitment guys, because it also solves a big problem for you. Like you want to hire people, again, you're going to people you trust. Instead of, I'm sure you get like 100 people reach. And again, this is the thing about trust, right? Which is what AI can't easily solve. If I tell you, Vinamre, 100 people are emailing you per day saying, can I be your editor? Versus I'm giving you editors that my team has trained, that are top notch, that you love, that we love and we have scored, and blah, blah, blah. And there's a standardized pricing. It's also easier for you to just say, okay, I would like to hire from this. And we've seen this with a lot of other creators, right? So that's what, you trust me, and therefore that trust can get transferred. And that's what distribution also does. Distribution is also a trust mechanism.
Right. Like the numbers speaks more for you than you yourself. You don't have to. One thing I've realized that's very strange about when I get guest requests for the podcast, there's two kinds of people typically. There's one person who has to, their PR agents have to invent a bunch of awards and recognitions and dubious companies or organizations that no one cares about to sell their credibility. And some people just send me something saying, hey, I have 1 million followers on Twitter. Do you want to collaborate? It just hits different, those two things.
Yeah. Like Nas once told me this, right? And it stayed with me for a while. Nas Daily, this is no sire. He was like, the best thing about the Nas brand is that the first meeting is always on the house.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's interesting. Like, there was a time where I couldn't get meetings with people. I remember when I used to hire when I was like 5 or 6 years younger, I used to go to WhatsApp groups and beg. I should be like, please come work for me. Today, it's no longer that. Today, it's like, it's easy for us to hire. People trust us. People have seen proof of work over many, many, many years. People know we will always take care of them well. I would never go back. And that's why I create content, right? Like life is much easier when you have content. Everything from recruiters, now I know you, right? Like recruitment is easy. Everything from recruiters to if I want to do an offline event, to whatever, any business line, any consumer business line I think of, it is straightforward for us, right? Because of the distribution we have. The first meeting is always on the house, and I'm sure you're seeing some of the rewards of that. And it's strange, but how much we care about that. If you go to somebody and say, I have 990,000 followers, it's different from you saying I have 1 million followers. It's just 10,000 followers.
That is true.
Right? But 1 million hits different. It's how we rank each other, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's so weird when YouTube came out with the feature in India where they replaced the K with the L. It just didn't hit different. It just didn't hit the way it used to, because our brains are always optimized for 100Ks, 200Ks, 600Ks, but not 6L. That's almost like taking an L because it's not the same status. Anyway, bro, I think it's been fantastic to pick your mind and talk to you about all things AI. And I for sure, right now as we speak, ChatGPT is trending on Twitter with 74.5K tweets. Anyone listening in, this is your time to check out what the world of AI has to offer in India. If you're still listening to this, you're pretty early.
jump on the bandwagon. I think the entire economy is going to shift around this. And thank you, bro. Thank you, Varun. Always a pleasure to talk to you, bro.
Bye.
Okay. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for joining in. Make sure you follow my account. And yeah, see you in the next spaces whenever. Bye-bye.